So we're going to jump right in and we're going to set up our own product design scene within Unreal Engine. So firstly, we'll start off by launching Unreal Engine and we're going to create a new document. So we'll go to architecture, we'll go blank, so we'll name our project and hit create. So once the document opens, it'll look a lot like this. So first of all, we'll go ahead and import our actual product before we start anything. So we'll just delete this. You click on it, press delete. Now I'm assuming you've already designed and created a product in another program. So you can either go file and import into level. This is if you have an OBJ or FBX, or if you've created it in Rhino or other programs, you can save it as a Datasmith file. So we'll go ahead and go to this little box with the green tick, and then we'll go Datasmith and go file import. Then we'll import our Datasmith file. We'll right click, create a new file. I like to make a separate folder just for the Datasmith assets, but we'll go like that and import it into there. Now if your product has textures already on it, you can tick materials and textures, but the one that I've created has no textures, so we'll just untick that. Let's go geometry. And usually with these settings, the default settings are usually okay. However, if you want it to be really detailed, you can increase the light map resolution and the minimum and maximum. But we'll just import this as it is because it usually works fine. So this is where it shows up in your content browser. To access the content browser, you hit Control and Spacebar. And then you can see all of your content within your level. So the way you navigate around is you hold down right click and then you can look around and then use the WASD keys to fly around. So we'll just go ahead, click on this stuff and move it out the way. The sun and the sky will be deleting later. Same with the clouds, we should delete those now, because we want to be setting up a completely dark and blank scene. So when you import your product without textures, it'll end up looking like this. So we want to go ahead and add some textures to this. The best way to do this is using the Quixel Megascan library. So you click on this again and go to Quixel Bridge. I think this already comes installed in Unreal Engine. If not, I think you go to the marketplace and you install it. This is probably one of the most handy things you can use. So as our product is a mobile phone, we want to find like a black plastic texture. And also maybe a black metal and glass texture. So we can go into here and then go to surfaces. Might have to search it through here, so we'll just go surfaces, then go metal. Here we go, got pristine metals. These will do for the metal textures that we want. So this looks like a highly reflective one, we'll go with this. I'm just going to download it at medium quality. You can change the quality depending on what you want, but for this, medium should be okay. So download that, and maybe an iron as well. So we can add that to our project. And so now we've got two metal textures, which will be good. Now we needed our plastic texture. Also, these gunmetal ones are really good because these can pass as plastic, or you really just want that kind of mobile phone looking texture, especially painted ones, they're pretty good. So we'll just download this one, painted gunmetal, so we'll use that for the outside of the case. Then we'll use the shiny one for the inside of the phone and the camera and the lens. So the phone has a little flash thing, I think, so maybe we'll just use a gold metal thing for that little part of the phone. We'll just import this one as well. Alright, so we'll go into our content browser. You can always dock it in the layout, like so. So all of our imported materials are here. And they come as material instances. So we don't need to worry about actually scripting or coding these materials so you can adjust them. They've already done it with these Megascan materials, so you can easily just use these parameters to change the color, the sizes, the tint, and all of that. So it's really helpful. So we'll say that this gunmetal texture is our plastic texture. So we'll go ahead and our kind of phone here has these little rubber bumper stops on it. So we'll put those onto there, and then I'm going to change this iron material into just a shiny black material. So we'll open our material instance. We'll tick the tint. You can see we can turn it down so it's a bit darker. And then we should be able to adjust the roughness. So we'll take the roughness down to make it more shiny. So you can add some metallic to it. I can't really see the difference it's making, but it seems to be alright for now. So essentially you just want to turn that roughness down, so the min roughness is at 0 and then the max is turned down, so this essentially makes it a lot more smoother of a material. So we're going to hit save. Now you can see there's our black texture. Now these bump stoppers on it are a little bit, the color's too bright for it, so we'll go ahead back onto our gunmetal and we can just turn this down a bit. Should be able to do this in real time. So you can see the brightness of it. If you want to adjust it so it looks kind of realistic, then press OK and close that. So now that looks pretty good for our phone case. Now you got the phone screen just here. So you want to use the shiniest black one we have. See, it's pretty much a mirror, which is essentially what you want for a phone screen. In this case, I'm going to right click and go duplicate to make a new instance. So now we have 2 material instances. We'll go ahead and apply this new one we've made. You can rename it if you want, but I'm not going to worry about that. And we're just going to make this even darker. And then bring the smoothness down. Because we essentially want just a full-on mirror. Because that's what most phone screens look like. So now you've got a very dark and extremely reflective surface for the phone screen. Then on the surrounds, we'll just use this base one. Again, you want to just turn it down so ours is a mobile phone. And we just want to make sure that our texture has been applied to everything we want. Hopefully that's reflective enough. We'll see when we add lighting, but for now we'll just use this for our little camera lens. We can change the material on the inside and outside. So you can tell it's very reflective. You can see our black material. You can see that it's black, but these mirror ones are nice and reflective because they look a lot lighter. Just go ahead and apply this to all of our surroundings. And for this outer edge, we can probably switch to the less reflective material. Like so. So now in our instance, our mobile phone has this texture on it, so we need to import our texture. Right, so I've gone ahead and added a texture onto our phone. This is a little bit of a complicated process within Unreal, so if you want, I can do a separate video on this, so just comment down below if you like that. However, I'm assuming you've now got your product set up with all your materials applied. So we'll go ahead and now set this up for our camera view. So what I'm going to do is, there's an iPhone ad that I saw that we're going to kind of replicate. So it's this one with this kind of camera angle. It's a very high lens length. It's probably about 100 mils, 150 mils or something. So we're going to replicate this with our Unreal Engine camera. So firstly, we're going to move our phone and lay it down flat. So we'll select that, press space, go up here, and then just turn this down so it's 90 degrees. So we're going to set up our camera. So we do this by putting the camera somewhere where you kind of want it to be, and then going up to here, under the little tab on the top left, and then go create camera here and go assign camera actor. So you see it's now placed the camera, and we'll go ahead and set this up. So we'll change our view to assign camera actor 1. So now we're seeing what the camera is seeing, and when we move around our viewport, it's actually moving the camera itself. So we're going to go down here and we're going to set our aperture to be as high as it can. The higher your aperture, the less kind of blurriness and focal depth you get. But for setting it up, you want to set it at max. Then we'll adjust it later. Our current focal depth, we'll try 100. You want to hold down right click and then scroll down with your mouse to slow down the camera, because this can be quite tedious. So we're going to set this up to where you want it. Change the lens length, maybe 110. And kind of set up the camera where you want it. So we'll put ours round about here. So you can kind of see that logo and the rest of the phone. We can change our focus distance by clicking the eyedropper and just clicking where you want it to focus. Now we can set our aperture down. So we'll reset this and you can see it blurs what's not in focus. So we want to set our focus distance just so you can see, so you can read the logo and kind of see this kind of camera lens. So we'll just set it to around about here. Keeping the aperture at 2.8 seems about alright. Just make some minor adjustments. I think here looks good. So we'll just set that and make sure it's good. So we don't want to readjust our camera again. So we'll go ahead and exit this view. So I just change it back to, I just click cinematic viewport and then go back to default viewport and just make sure you're not viewing the camera, because then you'll end up moving it around. So once that's set up, we need to set up our lighting. So go ahead and delete this height fog and delete our sun. You can do this up here as well. You'll just find it. It's easier to find if you just search sun sky and then just delete it. So we'll go ahead and light this with, first of all, we'll just use a directional light. So we use this to set the kind of overall dimly lit lighting. So we're going to try and light up the edges of the phone, and this is more of our ambient light. So what I like to do is move this where you can see it in front of the camera. And then we'll change back to our camera view. If you click off it and then click back on it, it should show up in the viewport, which it's not, so we just need to adjust that. You'll see why I'm doing this in a second. Just put this here, then change to there we go. So now we can actually adjust and move around the lighting. So we'll turn off our rotation snap, and we can adjust the lighting in our viewport to kind of set this up. So this light is very bright. You see I've accidentally moved the viewport. You want to be careful of that. So I want to kind of illuminate this from the side. Maybe a little bit of that camera. Now we want to set our illumination down a bit because this is just a ambient light. So we'll go like 1 lux. Or even like 0.3. 0.1. And we just want to adjust this till we are like happy with the kind of direction of this. We can turn this down a lot to maybe even 0.0. So it's kind of harshly reflecting on some of these surfaces. So we just want to adjust this till we are really happy with what it's illuminating. Yeah, this is just our ambient light, so it doesn't have to be illuminating the actual surface. Just to give us that kind of atmosphere. There you go, so about that looks good for that. Now go back to our default viewport, and we're going to add another couple of lights. We'll go with 1 point light and then 1 spotlight. So we'll move our point light around, and this will be like the overall illumination. Turn it down to maybe 1 candela. Turn the attenuation radius down as well, so you can really control how much it's actually lighting. So go back into our viewport and select it. You can also select it up here and kind of move it around with these settings here. So we want to try and kind of illuminate this camera that we're seeing. We might need to change our focal settings again. You really just got to play around with the lighting to kind of get it set up how you want. So use our directional light to kind of set that up. And our point light, we can move this around again. So here our point light has kind of traded places with our directional light. We don't want that to be too harsh, but kind of just want that to subtly illuminate those cameras. And then our point light is looking way too harsh on the right hand side here. So we'll go ahead and turn this down. It really just takes a lot of adjusting. So we want this to very subtly light up the side. We'll light the logo with a specific spotlight. So we'll kind of just use this more to light up this kind of side angle. There we go, about that. Now we'll add our final spotlight. Go to lights and then go spotlight. And again, we'll just put this onto the phone. And we'll just go ahead and lower the outer cone angle so it's more direct and controllable. So there's our phone. We want to kind of move this so it's lighting it on an angle. You can also change your viewport to unlit so you can always see where your object is. Just make sure that it is lighting it up. It's about there, looks good. We'll go back into our viewport now. Go lit. So now you can see where it's lighting and where it's hitting. So we want this to be kind of just illuminating that logo. And it might be a bit too far away from the phone, so we'll just bring it a bit closer. The angle might be a bit too harsh, so we can point that up a bit. There we go. So go back into our viewport. Just adjust this to light where we want it to light. Change this down to maybe 4. You can change the outer and inner cone angle. So you want that light to really be illuminating from the left, kind of coming out. It's about there, looks good. And we'll just change back to a cinematic viewport and then change back to our camera. So we can really adjust this camera. So you can kind of adjust the camera so you get these little bit of lens flares on the screen. See where the camera is illuminating. But don't try to overdo it. Go back onto our camera now. And set the final focal depth to where that logo is or where you want it to be. So I think I'll set it kind of in the middle, about there, and we'll make sure we save that. So now we're going to set up a level sequencer in order to export this as an image. So we go up here, we go add level sequence, we'll just call it whatever you want, go enter. Now we need to add our camera, so we'll go track, activate the sequencer, and go to your camera and add that. So you see where it says camera cuts, it's now got our camera as the main camera cut. So now we want to click render this movie or image to a sequence. And then your camera should show up here. Where it says unsaved configuration, we want to click on this. Output resolution, we'll do it 1920 by 1080. However, if you want a 4K image or ultra high resolution image, you can turn this up. And we want to click custom playback range and set the start and end frame just to 2 numbers. So it's 1 frame, so frame 5 to frame 6. Or you can do frame 0 to 1 or 1 to 2 or whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. You want to go setting and go anti-aliasing. Now we want to increase both of these spatial and temporal sample count to be really high. Usually for videos, when I do animations, I set this to about 7 or 8 for both of them. But for a single image like this, we can probably set it to like 16 by 16, which is pretty insane. All depends on your setup and your rig as well. You might want to start off with 8 and see how long it takes your computer to do it. But usually, if you've got an RTX or something, this should be alright for 1 image. You want to make sure your anti-aliasing method is set to none. Engine warm up, I always like to go 32. So it kind of bakes that lighting before it actually captures those shots. Go accept. You can also save this as a configuration if you want. And we'll hit render. Let's see what our first try comes up with. So see our image, it's a little bit bright, and the camera is a little bit too close because we've got quite a low quality PNG for this. So, and the lens flares are a little bit harsh. So once you've exported, you can go back, and we're gonna just readjust some of these things. So we're gonna move our camera back out a bit. Maybe increase the focal length to 125. Gonna move this down. Readjust your frames a bit. Reset that. Alright. I'm just gonna try and adjust the light so we get a bit of a lens flare again. So you got a bit of flare happening there. Now when we exported it on our image, it's a little bit bright and harsh, so we can go ahead and adjust this. Also, our overall image is a bit bright, so we're going to go down to our post-process. I'm going to go to exposure, click this. We just want to turn this down a bit. Just want to adjust our exposure value, and then go to lens flares, intensity. You can see we can just set the intensity of this, so we'll just set it to really low, like 0.1. Or even less, like 0.3. And same with bloom, which will be somewhere, bloom. You see you can set it high or low. So we're just going to set it a little bit lower because it comes up a lot in that final export. So once we've adjusted those, we'll just try rendering again and see what we get. We can see our new export. I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe those lens... Last thing is maybe just that focal depth and lens flares are a little bit harsh, so we'll just go ahead again, change those lens flares down. You almost want none at all, so go 0.05. And that focal depth, we'll just change that again, so it's really on that logo. Go ahead and render. That's looking much better. You also may notice that you get kind of jagged edges on your image. That's all about the anti-aliasing. So the higher the subsample, the less of these kind of jagged edges you'll get. You can see with our 16 by 16, you still get a little bit. So you would mitigate that by increasing it to get an even smoother image, but this would result in a longer render. But I'm pretty happy with that. And hopefully your product render looks similar to this. And thanks for watching.